Hello, beautiful witches. Um, I have some really exciting news to share with you. Um, it's it might change the channel a little bit, but not hugely. I guess it's part of my journey, so it will change it a little bit. So it will explain why I haven't been around as much recently. Basically, my husband and I have been thinking for a while now about how our family can progress really. And my witchcraft comes into that a lot. How can I progress in my witchcraft and move forward, basically? And, although London will always be my heart and my home, where we are now, it can't offer what we want and the kind of progression that we would like and the kind of life that we'd like for Ori, really. Ori is our son's nickname. His name is Orion. So I love the magic of London, the memories held in the stones and the history of it. I love the people from all walks of life just mixing together. And I tell my son stories about the dragons screeching beneath the tube trains and the secret spirits of the rivers hidden underground. There are ghosts that walk the streets and the terraced houses, moving over the cracked pavements among the tourists. But we can only just scrape our rent. And with renting, there's just, there's no control over things. It's not your house. And there are constant reminders of that. And on a personal level, I find that very triggering because obviously when you've been through situations where your body and your personal space hasn't been sacred, to have someone continuously invade your personal space because they technically own the house and you don't is not an easy thing to deal with. I've got better at it, but I still find it hard. And we're lucky enough to have been gifted money from family, and at first we looked at staying near London, but over Christmas we had a pretty stressful time. My husband's mum nearly died, and there were really high emotions in my family as well. It was not a fun Christmas. And obviously we celebrate Yule as a family together, and then what we tend to do is we will have Yule as our time with each other, and we will kind of try to give back to nature at Yule and look at giving as obviously you give at Christmas, but for a child it's often about receiving presents as well, whereas Yule for us is more about the giving aspect only. Anyway, so this whole experience made us relook at what we wanted, and I have been doing a lot of work at looking back at things I've always loved that made me part of myself. A big part of that is animals. I miss the freedom to keep animals in rented property. We've got our beautiful cats, Eloquence and Actually Whimsical are their names, but they get called Ellie and Chills. But we can't have more pets than that, and it's quite difficult to get animals written into contracts, and if you have to move on, you've got to find a house that accommodates them. And I felt for a while now that the ancestors were calling us to create this really strong family home to grow from. We also became really concerned that we couldn't easily reduce our environmental footprint where we are. We thought more about Orion, our little one, growing up where there are stabbings all the time, and there have been quite a few stabbings in or near my area, including ones that haven't really reached the news. There are a lot of stabbings that don't get on the news because the person doesn't die. They're treated in hospital, or perhaps it doesn't get picked up by journalists because it's quite a quiet thing that happens. And in the end, we decided that it wasn't really going the way we wanted it to here. We felt like we were stagnating a little bit, and that we were coming up against a lot of barriers. And that strong family home couldn't really be created because it kept being invaded by different things. And when I say a strong family home, I also mean a home where we can provide a safe place for, you know, other family members, older family members, as well as, you know, our son and the cats, because they are part of the family to me and everyone in our family. So yeah, so that was very important, and to provide really as well a place where we could connect with the ancestors on a very deep level. And in the end, we decided to move somewhere with some land, and our long-term plan is to start a small holding and basically live more simply, surrounded by nature. Now, to me, London has always been the city of orange skies, and a part of me will really miss that thrum of its blood. But I knew I was being taken in a new direction, and I'd done a lot of work on my roots in London, and I feel like I've almost like worked through what I needed to work through, and that London is so integrated in me, that I'm just totally fine with it being time for something new. And that's pretty unusual for me. Like, usually with a change like this, I would be freaking out and using things in a positive way, you know, coping mechanisms to keep on top of that freak out. But I am so positive about this. Like, it's a release, this change. And we travelled all over the north of England, where you know, prices are cheaper and it's possible to get some more land and things like that. And we looked for the right place and land, the right house and land, rather than looking in specific areas of the country, which confused a lot of estate agents. They were like, wait, so you're not actually just looking in this area? I don't really understand. But I asked the ancestors for guidance, and each day I would light candles and incense and leave them offerings, and, you know, chatted to them just the same as you do when a friend pops over for a cuppa. And I really listened to what they were saying and the kind of things that were coming up. And I prayed to the sea, who's obviously my most primal mother. And, you know, I would light her. She has a pale blue candle at the moment. And I always offer her rum, which fits for her. I think it's to do with the richness of it and things like that. But that's always what she's kind of wanted. And I explained what I felt we needed to her, and that I didn't know if it would be possible to go somewhere close to her, where there would still be land as well. But I kind of reassured her that it wouldn't change anything, and I would still make yearly trips to see her and be close to her and bring offerings and things. And I'd still always honour her in my work. And the ancestors told me, you know, you will know when you find this house, you'll know, and this land. And I was really nervous because I was kind of like, well, yeah, I do very often know things. But it was such a huge move. I was sort of like, oh my God, what if like excitement or outside pressure is going to sway me here? And something, you know, kind of throughout this process, I mean, we did bonkers trips. This is kind of why I haven't been on. Because, I mean, at one point, we did a 10-hour round trip in a day with a 4-year-old who doesn't like sitting still. And yeah, I mean, and plus he has dietary requirements, so it's like, you know, you got to be prepared basically. But something kept calling me back to this advert online for another house somewhere that we hadn't considered. And at first my husband, because he's planning to commute back to his current work, at least for a while. He works in the video games industry, and he's doing something quite interesting at the moment, and he doesn't really want to break away from that yet. I think there might come a time when he does, because, you know, it is a long commute, really, wherever you're coming from, to London, whether it's from the north or elsewhere. And at first my husband said about this other house that I was drawn to, you know, no way, it's too far away, too far away from work. It's never going to work out for us. But I'm not a never person, and I kept being called back to these pictures. And I started sending it to him as a joke, really. So I'd be kind of like sending it as the unattainable dream house, like if only. And in the end, we actually found a house nearby that house, and we went to visit it. And my husband realised that he actually found the journey quite manageable. And then this particular house that we visited, it just wasn't doable. The land was great. It was what we wanted in that aspect. I didn't feel particularly a calling to that land necessarily, but it had practical things in place. So, like, you know, there was a lot of the land. That was a big positive. And there were water sources on the land, another big positive for keeping animals. But it was the house itself, I don't know, like some people class it as livable in, but I thought it needed a lot of work with probably quite a lot of money that we didn't have. And it was quite small, which wasn't necessarily a problem. I was ready to downsize, but I did feel it was quite small considering we would like to expand our family in the future, you know. So in the end, we decided that that house wasn't doable, and it was also on quite a main road near a lot of electricity pylons. And I was slightly concerned, number one, about being near the pylons. You know, I know people say that there is this safe distance and things, but surely, yeah, I don't know. I sometimes feel that those kind of things I don't always trust necessarily, because you never quite know what's been hidden. You know, it's like the fact that environmental issues have been such a huge thing for so long and so known about. And of course, they've been covered up. And it does make you think, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to fully trust that. So that was an issue. And the fact it was on a main road, because I don't drive. So I would have had to walk across several mountains to get my son to school. And I thought, well, in bad weather, I don't know how that's going to work out, you know. So we decided that wasn't doable. But when I next sent the dream house as a joke, my husband kind of said, do you know what? Let's just go see it. Let's just have a look. And if we feel actually, you know, the journey isn't going to work or things aren't really in place, then we won't go for that house. And it was insane, because we arrived at the house and walked in, and it was just, I mean, even like the wallpaper, we wouldn't necessarily have chosen that, but it was totally to our taste and suited the house, you know. And I could feel the energy of the house so deeply. My hands are going crazy as I'm talking about it, and I put my hand on the house and said, you know, would you like us to come? And I could really feel its pull. And you know, it's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. It's just what I've dreamed of for a really long time, and never in my dreams thought I would ever get, you know. So the land that comes with it is sloped, which is a slight issue in the sense of we had been not looking at sloped land because of my chronic regional pain syndrome and stuff, but I feel like I'm managing my pain much better now. And I felt just such a connection to the land when I was there, and the subsequent time that I visited as well. And I just thought, this is completely it. But I didn't want to I almost didn't want to say that to myself straight away, because I was like, I've got to see how my husband feels. Like, I knew it, but I was like, okay, well, let's just see, you know, see what he thinks. And as we left, he was like, yes, that is our house. And I was shocked, because my husband and I, we have very different taste in houses and stuff, like genuinely, you know, he's much more of a, he prefers the look of like stainless steel and minimalist stuff, and I'm like, hell no. You know, let's give me some chaos and some bohemian feel, and you know, hippie shit, as my friend Chloe would call it. But yeah, so that was a big surprise to me that he was so on board. Anyway, so in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be moving there, and I would be there right now, but the moving date was delayed. And I've kind of been like putting off making this video, because I thought, oh, you know, well, if something goes tits up, or just, I didn't know if I'd wanted to have spoken about it before, because it's just, I'm so happy about it, you know, that I didn't want to express that and then have to look back on it and think like, oh, it didn't happen. Even though obviously if it didn't happen, it would be for the right reasons. But anyway, so one of the crazy things is that we knew that this house was in a village in kind of big hills, and we were standing outside the house, and as you look down, you can see the sea. And I just looked out and thought, I could feel her saying, you know, I knew that I could find you somewhere close to me. And that was really special, because I just felt like everything was in place, you know, it was just meant to be. So yes, it's in Wales, which I don't know, we haven't really considered Wales, but now that we've been there, I mean, you know, we've visited it quite a few times now, and we really enjoy that the people there often tend to be quite laid back, and obviously you can't speak about everybody in a place, but you know, like in London, right, you get the tube, and there's a tube every 2 minutes, and people are shoving you on the escalator to get past you. They don't care that I've got a walking stick. They didn't care when I was pregnant. They didn't care when I had a baby, you know, strapped to me in a sling. And they don't care about, you know, banging into Orion either. They don't even see him. And I just thought, you know, I would much rather have the bus that never turns up in the village, you know, than people knocking Orion down an escalator. And obviously I can't speak for everyone, and there have been some really lovely experiences on London transport where people have, you know, helped me get him off the tube when there's a massive gap between the platform and the train and things. But in general, people are like super rushed, you know, they just want to get past you and get going and get on, and they can't step back and see how ridiculous it is to be running for a tube that arrives every 2 minutes, and that the next one they could walk down to the end carriage and get on in an empty carriage pretty much. You know, they can't step out of that, like, gotta rush, which is a bit much sometimes, you know. And yes, so it's a big change, and I will still be visiting London and working with London, so that's not, you know, I'm not going to be cut off. The transport links are relatively good, apart from the bus that doesn't always turn up, but you know, like, we're near a town with a station and can easily go, I mean, we can easily go into Swansea and Cardiff as well. and my son's quite likely to be treated at a hospital in either Swansea or Cardiff, so we will be going there. But also, and we're not too afraid of travel, because I mean, like in London, a lot of people tend to think that it doesn't take very long to get from one place to another. But actually, like for us to get to somewhere in North London, it used to take, I mean, like my friend went to Brunel University in Uxbridge, right? And it would take us like 2.5 hours, 3 hours to get to each other. Because I went to Kingston Uni. And so, you know, that kind of level of getting across, you still do it really often. So to me, like doing like a 3-hour train ride or whatever into, or like 2 hours 45 minutes into London, it doesn't seem like a massive journey. And I think, you know, hearing people talking in America and knowing some people in America, they always are quite shocked at how we class relatively short journeys to them as long journeys, because obviously a lot of the time their houses are very spaced out, so their neighbour tends to be a long distance away. So, and you know, you might be travelling interstate sometimes and things, which can take a really long time. So yeah, I think that's quite interesting. But I mean, the house itself is, it's 2 cottages converted, and it's proper, you know, deep oak beams and exposed stone, and it's got an ingle nook. The ingle nook needs work, but it's got an ingle nook, guys. In fact, it's got a second one in the room that would be my husband's study. For some bizarre reason, okay, this house wasn't selling, and the estate agent said to us, she was like, oh, it's a Marmite house, you know, you'll either love it or hate it. Of course, I walked in and was like, oh my god, I love it. But I don't understand why it wasn't selling. Like, the land needs a lot of work because it's basically completely overgrown. But there are some outbuildings, and the house itself is really nice. It has had a modern extension put on at one point, which a long time in the future I'd like to kind of, you know, make it more in keeping with the house. And it's also had some work done to the kitchen, which kind of isn't quite in keeping, and it loses the proper space for like an old school range or whatever that would be more in keeping. It also loses some light in that work. So, you know, it's going to be a big project, and we've got some plans. We are on the list for a puppy. Super exciting. And I've not been able to have a dog since I moved out of my parents' house. So my dog stayed with my parents. She was kind of like a family dog, but really I trained her, and I loved her. But yeah, so we've gone for a vulnerable breed. It's an Irish red and white setter. They're really excitable and playful, and it depends a bit, you know, if the litter size is small and things, then we might not get a puppy, because they're so vulnerable that very, very few of them are actually bred in the UK. And I'm pretty sure that they're vulnerable in like America and Ireland and things. But yeah, so we're super excited about that. It's planned for 2020, our dog, and before that we'd like to get ducks. But it is going to be a lot of work. It kind of depends on how it pans out with money and things like that. But the other big change is that I am trying to learn Welsh, and I'm not fantastic at other languages, but my son is going to be educated in a Welsh medium school. The village school is a Welsh medium school, and I feel really happy about that, because I think it's so important to embrace you know, the Welsh culture and the actual experience of living in Wales. And I know that quite a lot of people who move there from England choose English medium schools where all lessons are taught in English and things. But Orion is like still the perfect age to learn a new language. And yeah, and I just think it's so important, and I want to learn alongside him because, you know, I want him to start with a basic understanding of the language and the fact that it is different to English, you know, like it's the rules and stuff are different. Yeah, so that's our big change really, and it will affect my witchcraft obviously because I work with land spirits, and the landscape is going to be changing for me because I'm going from, you know, southwest London, or the edges of it, really suburbia in a sense, where, I mean, we're close to like Epsom, and you know where Epsom salt comes from, and we're close to an ancient woodland as well, which we often go to. But this will be very different, and I will finally be close enough to the sea. It's a 10-minute drive, but I can get there in like an hour and a half walking, so I am very pleased with that. Yeah, and I think, you know, those aspects are kind of a really important change in my craft because I'm much more able to just walk out my door and just connect, and it does also have a positive impact really on the idea of the way I manage my mental and emotional health, as well as, you know, my family's well-being. Partly because obviously, particularly bipolar illnesses, they tend to be quite cyclic, and mine certainly relate a lot to seasons. And if I'm more in tune with the seasons going on around me, you know, if I'm outside a lot and just constantly around nature, then that can only be beneficial to trying to regulate my own seasons, as it were, and cycles. So I feel very positively about that. And yeah, I just wanted to share this really exciting change and say that obviously lots more content will be coming on my channel. You know, lots of the same type of stuff, covering lots of similar topics, and some new stuff as well, and the experience that I'll be going through with my family of moving and of the change of the land spirits and things like that, which I'd really like to share with you. So yes, many blessings and much love, and I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening. Mwah. Bye guys.